everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Katie, and today we are going to be doing my July mid-month wrap-up. So as of Sunday, whatever day that was previously, I finished 11 books. Now, I finished 2 more since then, but they're part of a series and I'm reading the 3rd one today, so I'm adding that to the end of the month wrap up. So this is everything that I've read besides like Archie comic books, because I do read those. I think I read like probably 5 or 6 this month already, but they're just leisure reading. I don't count them in my wrap ups. 11 books. Most of these were audiobooks only because I just had so much to read this month that it's easier for me to get them all done. So I found the books that I DNF'd because I forgot to write them down. But the first one I DNF'd was The Extremely Inconvenient Adventures of Bronte Meadowstone by Jocelyn Moriarty. I started it, and right in the beginning, they started talking about dark magic, and I'm okay with like fairy tale-esque magic, but this one was a little bit more on the darker side. I was like, no, I don't think this is something that I should be reading, so I DNF'd it. And then the other one was Sunrise on Half Moon Bay by Robin Carr. Both of these books were on my birthday TBR, so I am sorry, but just this, again, this one was very, very slow. It was a contemporary, which I am liking them more and more, but this one, no. It was very slow paced. I would think I made it into an hour into the audiobook, but like I was talking about a cheating husband, and I was like, there was really no plot line, really. I think it was just basically about 2 sisters who were basically going through their life struggles and everything and trying to find their friendship, but it just wasn't for me. I just found it very slow, so decided to give that one up too. Okay, on to star ratings. I counted them, and I have 3 3-stars, 6 4-stars, and 2 5-stars. So no 1 and 2 stars this month. I don't think that's ever happened that I haven't had as 2 stars. So I had one that was like kind of close to 2 stars, but I bumped it up to 3. So that's pretty exciting, actually. Okay, so now I can go back and hopefully, I lost my pen. There it is. Hopefully do it by star rating for you all. Okay, so the first 3-star was a author book. Kindly sent me an ebook copy, and it was Distant Stars. Why do I want to say Distant Shores? Distant Stars by Cassandra Garrison. I will link her Instagram page down below in the description box for you all. But I did enjoy the plot because I really was intrigued to see where it would go. It's about these 2 brothers, Will and Kane, who they're kind of having a really rough time in life. They were in the foster program and then they aged out. And the one brother, Kane, he's a very big troublemaker, and he pretty much brings his brother Will into every single like problem that he has, and just all of these different scenarios where like, he'll bring his brother into some pretty tough situations. Well, they finally are doing their biggest deal where they're going to kidnap a girl named Hannah Cole and ransom her back to her father to get money. So they end up doing that, and Hannah, she actually sees Will before she's kidnapped and thinks he's really cute. So the plot line is they kind of fall for each other, but most of like the falling in love happened during like after she was kidnapped, which was a little uncomfortable to me that they just fell so quickly. It's like you're kidnapped and you're falling in love with your kidnapper. So I was a little uncomfortable with that. That's why it did get a little bit of a lower rating, but I did enjoy it enough to continue with it. And I did really like the ending. I liked how it wrapped up. I liked that there was a pretty strong faith content throughout the book, and that there was retribution for pretty much all of the characters. I gave it 3 stars. I did enjoy it. If you do like that type of storyline, I think it is geared more toward young YA, like around between 15 and 18. I'm almost 30, so I think my age group also was a little bit different for the book audience, but I think people in that age range probably would enjoy it more than I did. Second 3-star read was Amelia Earhart, The Sky's the Limit by Lori Van Pelt. And I listened to this on audio. Thankfully, it was pretty short. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't really know too much about Amelia Earhart going into it, so I feel like if you knew more about her, it probably wouldn't be too interesting, but it just pretty much showed her life and how she kind of grew up and what really wanted to fly planes, and she competed, I guess, around the country, which I think is pretty cool. And yeah, so I didn't even know this, but like she joined in a couple of, I believe, transatlantic flights from America to Europe, I believe, or America to England, one of those. But she didn't actually do the flying. She was with a couple of men, but I guess they gave her the credit for being part of the team. So I thought that was actually really nice, especially for back then. But yeah, so I thought it was pretty interesting. I would still love to know what happened to her when she disappeared on her last flight, on her solo flight. All right, so the next 3-star I actually have a physical copy of. If this whole stack doesn't come crashing down on me. Okay, so the next 3-star is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I listened to the audiobook of this one because I thought I would enjoy it more. And I think I did. There is a few trigger warnings for this book. There is rape sort of mentioned in the book. It's not descriptive, but it is in there. There is some language in this book as well as violence, so be careful going into this book. This did hold my interest enough to continue reading it. And so yeah, this is a pretty heartbreaking book. This is about Dana, who she lives in the 1970s, and I think it's her 26th birthday with her husband, and she ends up finding herself way back antebellum South, where there's still slavery, and she is a Black woman. So she finds herself transported back in time where this little boy is drowning in the water, and she rushes in to save him. And come to find out, she has a connection with this white boy who pretty much every time he's in trouble throughout history, she is called back. And for her, it could be only a couple hours, it could be a day or two, but for him, it's been 4 years, 6 years, 10 years. But every time he's in extremely big danger or trouble, for some reason their connection comes and she is transported back. And she actually transports back once with her husband, because in 1970, I guess they were connected and they were, I don't know if they were next to each other, whatever, but she grabbed onto him and he was transported back. And the storyline was really good. I really did enjoy the storyline a lot in this book. I think it just, the language and a little bit of the violence kind of turned me off a little bit. It was really interesting to see kind of how she worked through those situations back in the South, and like the only way she can get back home, can I spoil that? I don't think I'm going to spoil that, but there's only certain things that will bring her back to the present. So I'm not going to spoil that for you if you want to read it, but I enjoyed it pretty good. I did like the audiobook better than probably reading it. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. I only gave it 3 stars though, so there's that one. And I'm probably going to unhaul it because, as I said, there's quite a bit of language in here. I mean, it's not super throughout, but there is quite a bit. So I think I'm going to go ahead and unhaul this one. Now we're on to 4 stars. Okay, next one was a graphic novel, and I don't add these on my wrap-ups too often, but I decided to go ahead and do this one. So this one is Isla to Island by Alexis Castellanos. I'm not Spanish speaking, so I'm so sorry. But I gave this one 4 stars, and this one was quite interesting. There is some Spanish sprinkled throughout, but it is mostly told in pictures. So this is about Marisol and her parents, and they live in Cuba. And it's right before Cuba goes to war, and her father and mother end up sending her to New York, where I'm not exactly sure who the people are. I don't know if it's grandparents or just friends of the family, but they end up taking her in, and she knows nothing of the English language. She is sent to school, and it's pretty interesting how when she's in Cuba, she was really happy before the war came, and everything is bright and colorful in the pictures. But when she goes to New York, all the pictures are black and white, grayscale. They're all colorless because that's how she felt. She felt out of place. She felt alone. She didn't have her parents with her or anything. I think it was grandparents, now that I think about it. But yeah, she's quite alone. But her grandparents, I don't really think spoke Spanish either. They only spoke English. And so it was kind of interesting to see that, and how the grandparents still showed her such kindness, and she loves to read. We find out she loves to read, so her grandparents end up kind of bringing that passion out in her and showing her books and showing her kind of different flowers and nature in the area. And we see the pictures kind of getting a little bit more color into the story as it's being told. And it's really cool. I really did enjoy it. I liked that there was more of a picture storyline instead of words, because I don't speak Spanish. All right, next 4-star is, okay, I have a physical copy of that one too. I have a few physical copies. So I finally got into this one, which is The Dragon and the Stone, the first in the Dreamkeeper saga by Catherine L. Butler. And thank you to Crossway for sending me a copy for review. I did really enjoy it. This cover is so pretty. It's definitely, I think, geared more toward younger middle grade. There was a little bit of faith content in here. It's definitely very inspired by Chronicles of Narnia. So if you like that, I do recommend this one. I did give it 4 stars. So this one is about Lily, and her father disappeared in I believe a boating accident or something off the coast. And she finds a necklace that was in her book that he gave her, but he never takes off the necklace. He had it when he left on the trip, and now it's in her book. So she decides to put it on, and all these strange things start happening. So the stone around her neck, she becomes a keeper of this strange dreamland, which this dreamland, I guess there's forgotten dreams, there's daydreams and stuff that can appear in this land. And my favorite character, honestly, was the dragon companion, Cedric, I believe. I believe his name is Cedric. Yeah, Cedric. I love Cedric. His creature, he's a dragon, but he hates being called a dragon because his whole species is supposed to be bad and evil and terrible. But Pax. So Pax the unicorn. So he's basically like Aslan from Chronicles of Narnia. And so he tells the dragon, he's like, you're not who your ancestors were. Like, you decide your own choices. And Cedric made the right choices, and he tells him that, you know, he's a nice dragon. And so I really did like this. I like seeing a different take on like the Aslan type of character, but in here it's unicorn. And so I'm excited to see more of that. There is some evil going on in this kingdom. There are evil shrouds and these evil creatures that pretty much can take the persona of any creature and anyone and anything. So her stone is the only thing that's kind of saving her from figuring out if it's a good or evil being. And so it's really good, and I liked that there was some redeeming qualities for a boy who's in her class who pretty much was the school bully. And we find him also going to the dreamland and seeing their friendship blossom and grow throughout the book, and I really did enjoy that part a lot. So I did really enjoy this. The second book, I think, is either out or is coming out very soon, so I will be continuing that series. Okay, so the next 4-star that I had was Revenge of the Beast by Jack Meggitt Phillips, and this is the second book in the Beast in the Bethany series. It is such a cute middle grade series. I absolutely love this series so much. There's gotta be a third one. I mean, the way it ended, it definitely felt like there should be a third book coming out. So the first book, we find that Ebenezer, he's like a 500-year-old man, and he's got a beast locked up in the attic, and he feeds it pretty much anything that's alive. It could be bugs, critters, birds, animals, and the beast kind of wants a taste for something a little bit more, such as a human girl. So pretty much whatever he feeds him, the beast gives Ebenezer whatever he wants. He spits out a beautiful piano. He spits out a pretty gold vest clothing. He lets him live for over 500 years. So yeah. So this book continues that story, and we find that Bethany and Ebenezer have kind of created a friendship between the two of them. He doesn't feed her to the monster. Obviously, that would be really gross middle grade. But they end up becoming quite good friends. And Bethany was a little bit of a troublemaker in the first book. And in this book, we find both of them trying to be do-gooders. So that's the phrase that they use, do-gooders. So they go throughout the village and they're trying to do good deeds throughout, but nobody trusts Bethany. She was always a trickster, putting pranks on everybody, and it was just a bad time for her, and nobody believes that she wants to do good, but she's trying. And the beast comes back in the second book and pretty much creates havoc in Bethany's lives and then the lives of all the people in the town. So it's just a good time. I really enjoyed this series. If you like a little bit of creepiness and strangeness, then yeah, pick up those books. They're fun. Next 4-star book was Iscariot by Tosca Lee. I think I might have overhyped myself for this book. I really wanted to read it. I thought I would really enjoy it. I think honestly it might be closer to 3.5 stars. I just really think I overhyped myself for it. It was good. I really like that Tosca did a great job in keeping with the storyline of Jesus and Judas. And I liked that we kind of saw a little bit of background story for Judas, just a little, but it definitely followed the biblical storyline, which I really liked that she kept to that. So this book is about Judas, who is the betrayer of Jesus in the Bible, and we see all the things that kind of led up to that. He betrays Jesus to be crucified on the cross. He's the one that betrays Jesus and sentences him to his death. And I like that Tosca Lee really showed Jesus's emotions at the end when Jesus knows that Judas is the one that betrays him. He knows throughout pretty much the entire time he spent with Judas. He knows that he's the one who's going to betray him, and you can feel the emotion in the book of how heartbroken Jesus is. He's not angry. He's heartbroken and sad because he loves Judas so much, and he knows that he's going to betray him. So I really like the emotion that Tosca Lee put into it, so I did end up giving it close to 4-star. I think 3.5 would be closer to it, but I did enjoy it. Okay, the next 4-star book was Gone Crazy in Alabama by Rita Williams Garcia. This is the third and final book in the Gaither Sisters trilogy. I enjoyed all of them. I think I gave them all 4 stars. This one continues the girls in the 1960s. I don't think they age very much in between each book. I think they're only about a year older in each book. Maybe not even that much. But we follow them as they visit their grandmother who moved away in book 2. And we go visit them in Alabama. And there's a lot going on in these books in the backgrounds. It's kind of interesting to see history in the eyes of such young girls. Delphine, Vonetta, and Fern. But you see a lot of stuff happening in this trilogy. You see them encounter the Black Panthers, which is an African-American group that started back in the 60s. We see them get involved with the KKK. in the third book. So that was pretty interesting to kind of see them experience so much at such a really, really young age. And so, yeah, so the third book, they just a little bit get involved with the KKK as well as tornadoes. So these poor sisters get involved with so much. And I think Rita really did a great job with creating these sisters. Oh, like they just felt like sisters. Like she wrote like she was their age. Like they were like always getting into fights. The two youngest, they always got into fights. They always were kind of beating up on each other, but I just enjoyed their characters so much. And the only part that I didn't really like in these books was I really felt bad for Delphine, who's the oldest. Their mother abandoned them at a pretty young age, and so she kind of took over as mom, and I just felt bad for her because she had to be the mom like throughout the whole trilogy, and everyone kept telling her, you have to take care of your sisters, you have to take care of your sisters. And I just wanted her to experience being a kid. Like, I just felt so bad for her. It's like even her dad was like, you have to take care of your sisters. So that was the only part where I was just like, oh, I felt so bad for Delphine. I just wanted to take her and let her have fun because she really needed fun, the poor girl. Anyways, a little bit heartbreaking. We find one of the sisters ends up going missing during the tornado warnings. And so Delphine honestly feels like it's her fault, but she ends up disappearing and they don't know where she is. So it's good. I did enjoy the whole series. I would definitely recommend reading them. They're definitely a different take on 1960s culture. I really did enjoy them. I like seeing it through children's eyes. I thought it was really interesting. All right, I have one more 4-star to talk about, and I have it with me. So I read Shadow by Kara Swanson. I actually listened to the audiobook for this one, but I finished it and I loved this one more than the first book. I think I gave them both 4 stars, but this is like 4.5. But we continue the story of Claire and Peter, and this whole book takes place in Neverland. I don't think there's really hardly any that takes place in our own world. So most of it is Neverland, and Neverland is pretty much dying almost. And we see her brother Connor. I always forget his name. I want to say Connell, but it's Connor. But Connor is in Neverland, and so Clara comes to pretty much kind of rescue him because she thought he was kidnapped by Peter, but find out Peter's a pretty nice guy, even though he's kind of like, he had a rough childhood. He made some bad mistakes, but it's a redeeming story too, which I really liked. And there is a little bit of romance going on between Clara and Peter, but it's not super strong in the book. Like, you won't see much of it. But yeah, so Neverland is getting dark, and we find out from the first book, Claire, she had some magical dust that was dangerous to other people if they touched the dust. So we find out in this book why it's dangerous. I don't want to spoil it, so I won't say anymore. But we find out in the second book what went on. And if you like Peter Pan retellings, I definitely recommend this series. The first one is called Dust. I have both now. So the first one is Dust, and sorry about the glare. There we go. So the first one is Dust. Again, it's really, really good duology, not a trilogy. You never know, could be. But I did really enjoy this one. We see some redeeming people. We see villains turn to heroes and heroes turn to villains, which is kind of an interesting take on this. And yeah, I don't know what else I can say about this because I don't want to spoil anything for you all. Oh yeah, also just that Peter has to come back to Neverland as well. He was in our world, but he follows Claire, and he's got to come rescue her as well, even though she's trying to rescue Connor. But Connor's kind of both Claire and Connor have a connection to Neverland that kind of connects them to everything there, and Connor is kind of being manipulated by someone. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler, but I'm hoping that it will interest you to read more into this because it's really good. I had 2 5 stars. So the first one was The Unteachables by Gordon Corman. And this is actually my first Gordon Corman. I will be reading more. I love this book so much. So cute and so much fun. So this is about the Unteachables. It's a bunch of kids that are in this classroom, and they pretty much are the kids that get into trouble. They can't be taught, and the teacher, who is Mr. Kermit, he basically doesn't even care. Like, he's the type of teacher like that is close to retirement or early retirement, and so he's just like, I don't even want to teach this class. So he doesn't know any of their names, even though he's been with them for months. He knows none of their names. He doesn't grade papers. He doesn't give assignments. He just doesn't care. And the students, there's a girl who doesn't even belong in the class or the school. Like, she's not registered. There's a boy who can't read, which we find out later he has dyslexia. It's not really a spoiler. He's one of my favorite characters. There's a boy who has anger management issues, and then there is a girl who kind of like, on the outside, people think she's a bully, but we find out a lot through the book. So it's all these kids in this one classroom, and I just loved this book so much. The character development in this book was so good. I loved it. I definitely think I'm going to get a copy of this book. It was really good. We find out later, kind of why he doesn't really care. There was a situation, the teacher, that happened like years ago, like I'm guessing a decade or two, but the principal still kind of holds a grudge against him and is trying to get rid of him out of the class. But the students end up start to really like Mr. Kermit. They start to really feel a connection with him and with the other students, and the friendships between the characters and everything. I really enjoy this book a lot, and we see the development between teacher and students and how they start to take care of each other and become almost like a family unit. They really take care of each other throughout the book, and teacher starts to care, the students start to care more about their schoolwork and want to try harder than just being lazy because the teacher didn't care at first. So it was really good. I highly recommend that middle grade book. It's not Christian fiction, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So I think most of the books I mentioned were Christian fiction, other than that one, Kindred, the Amelia Earhart one, Gone Crazy in Alabama, Revenge of the Beast. Those weren't Christian fiction, but the rest were. I'm sorry I forgot to mention if they were or not. Sometimes I forget. And the other 2 that I DNF'd were not Christian fiction. So yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so then we go to the last 5 star, which was my favorite of the month. And you all know what that one is. I won't go into too much detail because, yeah, I have a whole review on this on my channel. I will link it down below in the description box. But this book, it's so good. The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunsvold. Such a good book. Such an incredible character development in this book. I just loved it so much. Oh, this book. If you haven't picked it up yet, please do. Ask your library to order it. Buy a copy. Borrow a copy. Borrow a copy from a friend. Whatever you can do, just get this book. It's so good. But this is about Aiden, who is working for a newspaper, and she makes some mistakes along the way, and so she ends up getting an assignment that's pretty much low blow, having to write an obituary for a woman in hospice, and the hospice patient is Mrs. Clara Kipp. And so she comes there thinking, oh, I just want to get this over with, get this assignment done, get this obituary done. And we find that Clara Kipp has such a huge impact on the area that they live in, and just the story that Clara has and gives to Aiden. It's such a good book. It's so good. So she ends up reporting a different story, a different type of story than she was expecting to, and I just love this book so much. Oh, it's so good. The characters are so enjoyable, and I just loved Mrs. Clara Kipp. I just want to be your best friend, and Aiden definitely, like, I think honestly, Aiden is a character that really resonated within me. Like, we had pretty much a similar reaction to a lot that was going on. So I really liked her character a lot, and I definitely want to be like Mrs. Clara Kipp when I'm older. She's great. I love her. Pick it up if you haven't. This cover is really cute too. It reminds me of like a vintage photo album or something. It's just really cute. So yeah. If you haven't picked it up, pick it up. I think that's all I had to say because it was so good. So I forgot to put all my books together that I read. Anywho, so I didn't have too many physical copies, mostly because they were library books, but so these are the ones that I finished. Are they all right side up? Yes, they are. So these are the ones that I finished, plus all of the other ones that I didn't have physical copies for. So yeah, my thoughts were a little bit scattered. I definitely think it's the heat, and I've just been stressing out a lot. So my thoughts haven't been exactly straight lately, so I do apologize. I definitely did better with character names because I had them written down. Handy tip, if you don't remember characters' names, just write them down. It's such a big help. So anyways, so these are the books that I read so far this month. I already have 2 for the end of the month wrap up, and I have a feeling I'm going to have at least 8 to 10 more books to talk about. So yeah, there was a lot of reading done this month. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe down below. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video.